primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From the bright center of the galaxy, I'm Grex Kondak, and you're listening to Core World News, your holiday news service providing in-depth coverage of all the latest stories from around the galaxy. Now, your news segment rundown for May 20th, 2022. Old Ben's Hermit Hut, featuring an Obi-Wan Kenobi deep dive. But first, this news.
All right, thank you very much, Grex. Welcome, everyone, to this new edition of Core World News. This is episode 237, I think.
Whoa.
So we're chugging right along here, and this, as it turns out, is a big week for Star Wars because we got a Vanity Fair piece that came out. We're going to talk about the news right now. Obviously, we've got Obi-Wan coming out next week and Star Wars Celebration coming out next weekend. So we wanted to get everyone primed on Obi-Wan, but this Vanity Fair piece, these are usually reserved for like before movies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was honestly shocked this happened. Shocked might be an overstatement, but surprised. It's just, especially with Celebration, on the horizon next week. I thought it was going to be all quiet, nothing coming out for another week, and then suddenly they dropped this with a lot of information in this thing.
It's an exclusive, like with Lucasfilm, and you get interviews with Kathleen Kennedy, Diego Luna. Like, it's awesome. Like, you get like Tony Gilroy, and kind of like you get an insight into Andor, which was so cool. Like, just to hear, and like obviously the article's titled "The Rebellion Will Be Televised." Obviously the Gil Scott Heron sort of connection, but also we're going to see the rebellion. Like, we're going to see the rebellion in Andor. Like, that's super exciting.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Yeah, it was a ton of information on pretty much everything that's about to come out. It was like a state of the Star Wars Union. This thing, and then like the signature is Annie Leibovitz's photography, which is astounding. I think she's been taking photos since 77, right? So, it's a special thing. It's like it's part of the ritual that is being a Star Wars fan. I just didn't see it coming before this Obi-Wan piece, and I thought it was a nice touch in it. It was good timing. It really makes Obi-Wan feel special, and it's raising my expectations even further than where they already were.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for me to be more excited about this series. I am nervous currently about how excited I am about this. Like, I was excited about The Mandalorian because it's our first TV show. I was excited about Boba Fett, but I was a little whatever about it. And this is like, I might be more excited about this show than... This might be the most excited I've been since the Star Wars movie for this show, and that makes me nervous.
Yeah, I'm hoping it connects a lot of threads from Revenge of the Sith and sort of into A New Hope, because it's really fertile ground right there. 10 BBY, Obi-Wan going on an epic adventure. Like, it seems like it's the Obi-Wan show of our dreams. So I'm super excited for that. The photography, again, Annie Leibovitz. This article just has stunning photos of all the actors in their costumes. Hayden, Christensen, back. Like, the anticipation for this film is like off the charts. Or this show is off the charts. Yeah, I can't wait.
Time-wise, if we're saying, if I can get a little mathy right here, if we get 6 episodes and they're each 45 minutes each, that's essentially the length of 3 feature films. So we're essentially going to get a trilogy doled out, an Obi-Wan trilogy doled out over, a series of 4 or 5 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, just about. Or really, not to get technical, but you did use the term mathy.
Let's go there.
I'd say it's closer to 2 movies, because that would be 4.5 hours, I think, if it was 6:45 minutes. And you know how Star Wars movies are now, but still, like two giant feature films. But
I do think it's going to be like a noir swashbuckling caper, though. I don't think it's going to be a sort of epic or anything like that. So it's not going to cover the ground that a film would, in terms of like the ebb and flow of the dark side and the galaxy, and so actually, you know what? It might, given it's Vader and Obi-Wan going head to head, it might. Yes.
Here's the thing. It's, as we talked about in our Pillars episode, it's Star Wars is ensemble storytelling, and I'm sure there'll be an ensemble in Obi-Wan, but this is going to be a deep dive into a character in a way that we haven't gotten before, right? Like, I had all this thing planned last night to sit down and just watch the Obi-Wan bits of the prequels. I didn't get around to that because life's been busy. But I realized that's probably something I could do in about 2 hours. Like if you were just to skip to the Obi-Wan parts in all 3 trilogies, you can probably do that in 2 hours. Like that character, is an important part, but is not like a lot of screen time.
I know. And we're going to talk more about Obi-Wan specifically in the next segment. And I actually kind of want to talk about it in two halves. One, which I want to do first, is his life after this show, and then his life before the show.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
I like that.
But for now, though, why don't we dip right back into this article, because I don't want to miss anything, because there's so much fun stuff here. It starts with Diego Luna and talking about Andor, and pretty much Diego Luna's relationship, even before he got into Rogue One, with Star Wars. But there's I don't know, in his relationship with Tony Gilroy, they were like super close. And I forgot Tony Gilroy wrote Michael Clayton. That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's one of the best movies. Its screenplay is outstanding.
Yeah, outstanding, right? And he was just like, Gilroy called Diego Luna, and it's like, listen, it's you and me, ride or die. Let's go. Like, I'm not doing this without you. We take this the whole way. And it's, the culmination of that is now this series that they're able to write. And we got a lot of insight. We've talked about what we thought this show would be. I think we talked about like Skyfall, and a bunch of different things. But, Luna said it's really about refugees and what it's like to constantly be on the move and like being forced to go from one place to another, which I thought was really prescient, like, and current. And also a really exciting Star Wars story.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's going to showcase sort of like the Empire asserting its dominance in the galaxy. Yeah. Kind of like just tyrannically sort of taking over planet by planet. And I imagine Andor has to move on from his world, or something tragic will happen wherein he has to move and migrate across the galaxy. And it's going to push him into corners of the galaxy he maybe didn't intend to go to. It's going to change him. It's going to be an epic journey. Like, I cannot wait. And you got Tony Gilroy writing. He wrote all the Bourne movies. He wrote Michael Clayton. Like, the action's going to be superb. He knows action. He knows the spy genre. And what do we know about Obi-Wan? I mean, he's a sleuth. He's a spy. Like, Andor's a spy. Like, he's kind of nailed like that spy espionage side of Star Wars, like that's he'll crush in this movie.
Right. We have spent a lot of money on Andor as well. It's a lot of live action sets. It's not, I'm sure they did a bunch of stuff in the volume. We found out in this article they have 5 volumes now. I think there's one in Pinewood in England. There's 3 in California, and then there's one in Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Yeah. So they did 5 of these things, which is great. That means more.
Yeah. Technology is advancing quickly. They're putting more of the LED panel walls sort of like in sound stages all around the world. And even the Batman, if you look at the behind the scenes in the Batman, there's a lot of volume around those sets. It's going to be in wide use in the next 10 years.
Everything, including small independent films. Like, it's going to be the great equalizer in filmmaking. I really think it's going to be interesting to see how it's used.
Thor: Love and Thunder again. Stagecraft. So
I think Andor might be the show that gives us something that's least familiar about Star Wars. And what I mean by that is really clunkily put together. But, and so far in the shows, I feel like the Mandoverse is trying really, really, really hard to connect to the original trilogy, right? It's really taking a Lucas approach to a lot of it. It feels very Lucasy. I think Obi-Wan's going to feel very prequely. The more I see of the previews, I feel like they're going, which is great. And I feel like this, just with all of the bona fides that you just listed, is going to be its own thing. Like, I think they're going to take a bit of the Marvel approach of like, let's just tell a specific type of story in this universe, and we might get a spy thriller, right?
So when you say prequely, do you mean like large scope, sort of like galaxy wide interactions between characters, sort of like, whoever survived the Purge is reaching out to Obi-Wan, this sort of like story that's going to take Obi-Wan across the stars, and you're gonna get a sense of like the politics of those senators that maybe remain in the Imperial Senate, which is like, I guess, controlled by like the regional governors, or like is about to be, or like I guess they might be in fear that it's going to be terminated, right? Like the Senate will be, so they're living in fear that the Senate will be terminated, and
I think so.
they're
Even
reaching out
just
to Obi-Wan.
And the other way, I mean, prequelies, even just in the color palette, like right behind Grant right now, like he has the scene of the Grand Inquisitor walking through. I can't remember the name of that. It's not Nar Shaddaa, but basically it's Nar Shaddaa.
Sun Kang.
Oh, right. It's the fifth cousin. But you know, the fifth cousin. I just said.
Yeah.
That's my second cousin.
I want. That's the SNL bit I want.
Yeah.
Cousin, and it's just.
You
know,
know. As long as you don't give us Baby Yoda anymore, because if I never have to see that clip done by the worst person ever to be on Saturday Night Live. Oh, sorry. Now, anyway.
Wow.
Moving on.
It's turning into a different type of podcast.
Apparently, I'm a little rawer than I was expecting to be. Anyway, moving on. But I feel like, you know, some of the visuals, there's like brighter color palettes, right? Like it just weirdly in an Obi-Wan, it just looks, I don't know. It looks like it's just feeling like the prequels in a good way.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because there's a lot planned in terms of the interconnected story and the sort of like timeline of the galaxy. It's talked about in this article. They really explain almost like the far-reaching plan for all of their media endeavors, like in terms of all the shows and what's coming. And there's even a new show announced in this article.
Yeah,
that. Absolutely blew my mind, and it's the show we've always wanted. It seems like it's the rise of Luke's Jedi Temple and all those sort of Padawans therein, and that story. And I guess it's gonna be helmed by John Watts, director of Spider-Man, Far From Home, No Way Home, Homecoming, obviously
written by Chris Ford.
Yeah. Guys, I'm pumped for this. This is the show, right?
Yeah, well, wow. I think so. So this is Grant's guess.
What do they call this show? Because they named a working title related to the Simpsons episode.
They named it after the Simpsons episode Grammar Rodeo.
Yeah.
Where like Bart Simpson, they like fake a field trip and then just like go on this like.
There's definitely a Bart of this academy then, of this.
Which is kind of funny.
That episode has an amazing joke where he thinks cruise control means that the car drives itself. I just remember that joke. Watched it many times.
Okay.
Yeah. Just driving through a corn.
The only real details we get from this is that we get a casting notice has been called for 4 children around 11 to 12 years old. That's actually a pretty tight window. Inside Lucasfilm, the show is being described as a galactic version of classic Amblin coming of age adventure films of the 80s. So.
Right. It's a Spielbergian sort of Amblin production.
Yeah.
But I imagine also like Stranger Things might be an influence. Like I'm sure they looked at the numbers on Stranger Things and they were like, we need a Stranger Things.
Yeah. And so what Grant is jumping to is that these kids are headed towards Luke's school.
100%. Yeah. I agree with Grant on this. It just based on that description, it feels like it based on, you know, Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is basically what if Stranger Things met Ghostbusters.
Right.
You know, I feeling and with that, you know, with that movie, the whole thing is like seeking out a legacy character. So I wonder if part of this is part of me feels like we're not going to get a ton of Luke, and part of me might be a quest to find
Luke. Yeah.
Luke, right?
Ooh,
like these kids come together to find Luke.
They're like, great, we're saved and we're safe in this school. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
He's like, I'm on Camino. I erased it from the wreck.
Yeah.
They'll never find me.
But never find me here. What could possibly go wrong? I love that actually. They dropped that in that Boba Fett episode where Ahsoka says, "This is the safest place in the galaxy."
Yeah. For now,
until young Ben Solo comes along. Yeah. So we don't have it, but I mean, that's a pretty good guess. So that's a fun one. Just to put a punctuation mark on Andor, there's a spoiler in here. He says, you know, it starts with spoiler alert, everybody. Starts with Cassian Andor's planet being destroyed. So, and then he's just on the run, and then it's about him trying, you know, just constantly being on the run, and then what makes him stop, and what, you know, he gives his whole life to the rebellion. Ultimately, we know that. So like, what's the character's motivation for that? So Yeah, that's.
I wonder why they would glass his planet or destroy his planet. If like, what was the transgression? Was there just fierce resistance against Imperial rule? Like, is there a resource there? Like, why would they destroy an entire planet? It's kind of
Yeah,
I'm
and I
interested
don't
in
know.
that.
It's pre-Death Star, right? So they didn't actually use the Death Star to destroy it, so it
Right.
must be slightly metaphorical.
I think you
Or-
will see that as a location in this show, by the way, the Death Star construction and sort of
Yeah,
who's working
Yeah.
on the Death Star and sort of like on like a sort of engineering level, like not
So-
the grand architect in Galen Urso, but like more of the just
Poggle the Lesser,
contractors
perhaps?
on the
Poggle the
fields
Lesser,
and stuff.
yeah.
The people, right, and like almost like the people in spacesuits, just like out there in the construction site, right? Like,
Yeah.
I hope we get there. I hope we see some of that. I wouldn't mind Andor kind of sneaking through that. That would be cool with some Bothans or something.
yeah.
I
So
would
for
be into that.
for Sean Hayes' sister Tracy, if you've read the Aftermath books, sorry, that was a different podcast reference.
It's very meta.
We find out in Aftermath the beginnings of the Death Star were created by the Geonosians, those like insect-like creatures, creating it. So we might that's the very first part where they're just essentially scrabbling this thing together and mining for resources. So that's about where we are in the timeline. So that it would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
Jules-
also. I was gonna say, I also wonder if they want another bite at the apple with Grand Moff Tarkin. Now that they've kind of perfected the face replacement stuff, and related to this, Kathleen Kennedy also said the other quote I found was talking about Solo and Alden Ehrenreich. This one read me a little bit the wrong way. We talked about it. It said basically they talked about there should be moments along the way when you learn things, said Kennedy. Now it does seem so abundantly clear that we can't do that. And it seems to be she seems to be saying recasting legacy characters.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't think the issue with Solo's performance was Alden Ehrenreich. I will defend his Han till the day I die.
Yeah, but there was a sort of like polished, almost like I don't want to like compare these two things, but almost like a CW aspect to like how quickly Disney rushed in to do legacy characters, where it's like, it's almost like, this is another version of Han Solo, but it's like a younger, handsome actor of the day. And I'm like you kind of just need to make new characters at this point, because
100%.
It's just it makes better sense, and the movies are so well done that you just want to pay tribute to them. That's almost my thinking, is like, if the movies were kind of like, if there was things left hanging or there was wanting from the audience in terms of the characters and their arcs and stuff, maybe like recast them and whatever. But like, they're so beautifully handled by George that it's like, I don't know why you would recast. It's just it seems like you could just tell new stories at this point.
I know.
But I don't think we're gonna happen. I think they just have gotten so confident with the face replacement stuff. We're gonna get face replacement.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Grant's speaking to a larger issue where it's like, do we have to tie in legacy characters to every new story? And obviously, when we get to Acolyte, we're going to be way out. But and then we've got Obi-Wan, and like, so all of a sudden Hayden Christensen's back and Vader's in this, and like, that's a big shock. It's like, does he? And I feel personally like Mandalorian was a great show when all the characters were completely new, and then that was, I mean, almost the whole first season. It was just like we didn't have ties to any other character from any other IP in Star Wars, and I thought it worked perfectly fine. So yeah, hopefully they'll go that way. We'll sort of, I think it's just going to take time. They're going to milk these things. Solo happened because Kaz didn't have a script, and I think that was it. And he was just like, I want to make this movie, and they're like, we need a movie, and they made it.
What's crazy to me is I didn't have an adverse reaction to Alden Ehrenreich. I actually really liked his performance, and I actually really wanted to see almost like a series with that character. And and I loved Donald Glover's Lando, and I think I want the Lando series more than anything else, and I'm hoping that series gets announced soon. I know it was announced in a sort of whatever, but it would be cool to see something from that in terms of like the creators, if Donald Glover's writing it or whatever.
It was not named in this article, was it?
I know it wasn't. Nope. Not named.
That does not bode.
Guys,
well.
we did get the film slate, though. We did get the film slate. We have Taika Waititi's movie coming first.
Sure.
In the pipeline.
That's awesome.
And then Rogue Squadron is still, I guess, in development.
Yeah.
I imagine, like, I hope John Knoll and I hope some like the ILM sort of veterans are connected to Rogue Squadron. I hope it's like the X-Wing sort of like opera that we've always wanted. This sort of like starfighter epic. Like, I don't know. Like, I hope it's that film, but
Wedge Antilles. That could be. I mean, in the class, like, I'm ready for it now to just be an original trilogy era, and like you said, Grant, just like classic space opera.
Almost like maybe Nolan like style. Like, it's like Dunkirk, almost like it's
Dunkirk,
just like really atmospheric, and we're like really in those cockpits. Like, I'm hoping that's what the experience is like. Like Top Gun Maverick, guys. Are you guys excited for Top Gun Maverick?
I haven't seen a preview of it, so I can't speak.
I'm pumped. I am like beyond pumped. I'm amped for that movie.
All I know about it is that Cruise said that he absolutely would not let it be streamed first. It needed to come out on the big screen. I don't know. I mean, I love that movie.
I thought I heard conversely that he wanted it to be on streaming. He was like, I don't care. Like, he won't get the full magnitude of it.
See there's just misinformation out there, man. I don't know. I don't know.
No, that makes perfect sense because he's a vanguard.
All I know is
he's a vanguard of the film of the motion pictures, sort of like movie theater going experience.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'm going to see it in the theater. My wife's going to drag me to that one. Her family grew up.
I'll be there.
Top Gun.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch it. So we have Taika first, which I don't think we had a date around it. Then Patty Jenkins. She was pretty. Kennedy was pretty vague about that too. That one's further out, quote unquote. And then she was asked about the Feige movie, and she was even more vague with that. But it sounded like there was literally nothing there. She was like,
I would love to see what movie he might come up with. That's a sentence. That is a sentence and a half.
Yeah,
that means nothing.
There is no script. I think is
And John Watts has also steered away from his Fantastic Four film with Feige and now moved to this Star Wars project. So it makes me think that even though they're both under Disney, they're two different orgs, and they're two different firms. They're not going to, be working on the same projects or sharing talent. Like, they're so busy making such giant, works. So
also, I think I don't know how to say this. Marvel was moving like a well-oiled machine. Phase 4 has been somewhat bumpy for Marvel with Eternals and some of the other reviews and some of the TV shows. So I'm wondering if Feige's just I don't have time to race Star Wars right now. I got to try to right this ship over here a little bit.
I think the problem that Marvel's having right now is there are things that you thought would be more consequential, but they end up being sort of inconsequential, and you don't think about them weeks beyond viewing them. And I think in the recent series and recent film that just came out, and I worry about the future of Marvel, given that I was hoping that the Kang thread was sort of going to burst and sort of spill into all the other films, and it's kind of not there. And then in sort of some of the newer projects, there's no. I thought Kang was going to be in Moon Knight.
We just don't know.
Kang was going to be in Doctor Strange. I thought Kang was going to be, I thought he was going to be the new Stan Lee of every film, like almost in the background of every film. Like, I was like, Kang should be everywhere now, because now that he's here, like I'm almost fascinated. And then he broke the sort of like the universe at the end of that show. I'm like, well, wouldn't that, if the multiverse, wouldn't that affect every multiverse?
I think you and I off air talked about trying to like have Disney digitally add him into all the other old movies as well.
Right. Yeah.
Like now that the timeline's broken,
put him in every movie at this point. Yeah. I think there's precedent for it, honestly, in the storytelling.
Bring it back to Star Wars. I think that might be why Feige and Kennedy are kind of like a little not talking about it, because he had to kind of probably rush back and.
Well, it's massive tapestries, right? Like these macro interconnected macro stories. Or it's like once you've started, you can't. It's like it's like a bullet train. It's going to keep going with or without you, and you're just holding on. And it's so much story you have to get out there, and so much story you have to connect. I think she does talk about I did for a long time. I did hope the sequels connected to the original trilogy. That was my huge hope. I was really hopeful that the sequels would connect to the original trilogy in a meaningful way, like the shadow of the Empire sort of like lingering over those films. And it did. It was successful to a degree. Like, and at the final film, Rise of Skywalker, I feel like JJ really tried to show that the shadow of the Empire, still sort of like torments the galaxy. And that was great. But at this point, like I really am not looking for any more connected material, because that needed to be connected. And then I think I think at this point, with the stories that we can tell and the technology we have, it's like, let's explore all corners of the galaxy and different eras and all that kind of stuff. Let's go to different eras at this point. Let's explore new art direction, new art style. I think that's the huge part of all of that stuff is new concept art, like a new concept for, architecture, costuming, sort of like technology, starships, that movement. It's almost like movements really within Star Wars. And I'm hopeful that we get a new one soon. And we are, I guess, in the High Republic. There's a different pastiche there that we're seeing. And then, we've seen more ancient lightsaber hilts at this point, and sort of like what that signifies, what those eras might have looked like. So I'm hoping for that more medieval Star Wars look at some point. And if Taika's movie is going to be this kind of exploration of when those crossguard hilts were around, the High Republic and that sort of that era of opulence, like, I'm excited. So we'll see.
I love it. What about Rian Johnson?
Oh yeah, it sounds like he's quite busy.
He's
well, you know what? They're kind of that Netflix deal was like what $100 million for Daniel Craig, and like for Rian Johnson as well, and like they're very liquid. These movies, these Knives Out films are going to be going for years. I think it's a
10-year deal.
10 movie deal. Wow.
Yeah,
it's a 10-year deal. So
a 10-year deal is probably like 4 or 5 movies. And I don't blame Rian Johnson, because like after directing a Star Wars is a huge undertaking. B, being just having to like, and he just doesn't duck and cover at all. Like he's just out there online constantly engaging,
fighting the trolls and
and I'm like, he's probably like, you know what, I like making these really thoughtful, like Perot pastiches, right? Like Agatha Christie. And I mean, I want to see a Star Wars. I'm also really excited for like 4 more Knives Out movies.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
I
mean, I bet, Ben and I talked about this off air, and it was like, I like Knives Out, but almost my favorite part of Knives Out, I think, was the Ana de Armas character, like Martha. Like, I don't know if the Daniel Craig did the Foghorn Leghorn sort of like Blanc, like if he's Benoit Blanc, if he's like the most interesting part of that movie, and like
he's not
in Poirot. Poirot is kind of the most interesting part of that story, and I'm like, this is a new sort of like character, sort of like idea formula for this, like making, like really honing into the victims and sort of like exploring one victim as like sort of like the real key, sort of like
but I think Rian Johnson's
character motivation
thoughtful about that, about surrounding that character who just seems bored. Like I think that character's whole motivation is, I'm so smart, I'm bored. Like he walks in the Knives Out. He had figured it out like 5 minutes into it, and it was just like watching it unfold. And so I think it's about surrounding him with really interesting characters. Did either of you see the new Death on the Nile?
No,
movie?
I refuse to watch that movie.
Yeah, it's not good, in my opinion. And Carly and I kept yelling at the thing. When is the Death on the Nile going to happen? It takes like an hour and a half for the death to happen. And it's just like, okay, like they just don't surround him with very interesting characters in that movie. Yeah, the novel is great. And I don't think they did a good job. And I think Grant, that's right, is like in a lot of ways, the master detective in these novels and movies are kind of the least interesting. It's about the cast of characters surrounding them. And the original Knives Out was so good in that I'm hoping he'll be able to do that with the sequels. Just find really great character actors.
Yeah. If you great comedy too.
Yeah.
Really,
I would suggest
really
if you like this genre, Endeavor is fantastic. It's on Amazon, and it's very good. But that's one where you actually care about where the investigator is one of the most interesting parts, and they do it in a very organic way. He doesn't have supernatural powers. He's just good and flawed, and it's a really cool story. But so all right, so Ryan's out. There was another quote that I was searching for here, but I just can't seem to find it because this is like a 10,000 word article in Vanity Fair, where I think Kathy's just like, what we've decided is we just need new directors. We need some new blood, and so I think that's what she's doing right now, is trying to find new directors and new directions. And hey, Ryan got his bite of the apple. I'd love to see more movies from him. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen in the next decade, according to this. But that's fine, because there's other fantastic directors and movie makers out there, and I want to see their perspective on the Star Wars galaxy. It's just, there's a lot from Deborah Chow here. She sounds like a super fan and like really gets it, and I'm excited about that. We've had entire episodes about who would be great movie makers, so that was encouraging to me, was that she's like, no, we're going to find some new people to get in here, and that will breed its own. I mean, it's not going to all be the Filoni-verse. It's not going to be like just all the Clone Wars characters being recycled or everything in the same area.
Yeah.
You're gonna stories.
Yeah. I don't think it's just directors though. I think it's also writers. I think it's who knows the sort of like
voice,
spiritual, progression for these stories, and sort of like where should we go at this point and what's important. Because like it's hard to find frameworks to like leave the Skywalker saga, even though everyone wants to get out of here. Everyone wants to get out of this timeline, but where do we go and how do we get there that's logical and connects to like the overarching story? You know what I mean? Like
we said it last week, and we should say it again. Charles Soule is maybe the best Star Wars writer out there right now.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing that makes me hopeful about the movies is kind of the undertone I got from her. I mean, it's this giant article, and then there's like 2 paragraphs about movies at the very end. Yeah. But based on what she said, it feels to me like Star Wars is transitioning into TV. Like its main form is going to be television, and they're only going to do a movie when it's special and it's something important, and they've got the right thing. And because I think what set them up for failure a little bit, not that the movies are failure, but it set them up if they were going to continue. So it's like, we need a movie every year, and and we're going to do the Skywalker saga every other year, and it just that pace killed them, and it just they fell under the weight of that pace, I think.
And then you have like people like Bob Iger saying, oh, we had to pump the brakes because we were making stuff too fast, too fast. And then that trickled down, and Lucasfilm did slow down after that and moved to streaming. And in the article, Anthony Breznican, the writer, even highlights that Star Wars right now is working on fueling the sort of Disney Plus ecosystem and keeping people subscribing and keeping that thing flush with content. And there's going to be a lot of Star Wars content in the future on that platform, and we might get a show for almost anything you can think of. I mean, it's almost like, I don't want to connect it to comics because I know comics just seem like a completely different sort of format, but I think you could really dive into these all types of characters. I think you could get really obscure character stories on Disney Plus, and I hope they take risks and really explore some characters you'd never think would get a series, as well as the characters like Obi-Wan, who you'd obviously think should get a series, and we've been begging for since. I think that was actually the thing I wanted most after the Disney acquisition, was like, oh, we can get more insight into Obi-Wan, and like that's a character I've always wanted to see on screen for longer. So. And it's awesome.
I think I found the quote that actually might tie 2 things together. What we were just saying about the move to video on demand and television serials, and also maybe what you were thinking about too, Grant. So this is Kathleen Kennedy. What's unique about Star Wars is that we're one story, basically, says Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy. George was always dealing with episodes. Ironically, he was serializing his storytelling. He was influenced by Flash Gordon and cliffhangers on Saturdays at movie theaters. All of that informed what the DNA of Star Wars is, which is why I think it's just organic that we made the transition into television, which is a very eloquent way to explain in this basic transition, even though video on demand is like the thing right now. But it actually makes sense if you think about it storytelling wise. It's like, we can break this up. This is always supposed to be a serialized, like, broken up storytelling, and we're just going back to what it was always meant to be, which is
it's like the ring cycle. It's like Wagnerian. It's even though it's serialized, the best Star Wars does feel operatic. It does feel like an Odyssey, And so even though it's, short storytelling and it's short sort of clips of one larger story in these trilogy films and stuff like that, it's also just it's also operatic, and I think that's important. Like I like when it's both.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a massive middle section where the author sort of goes back through everything, like the invention of Mandalorian, because I think we will be getting Mandalorian season 3. Actually, I wish I had they go through exactly when everything's coming out.
They mentioned Ahsoka's 2023,
early 2023. We're gonna get Obi-Wan and then Andor this fall, Ahsoka 2023, and then I don't know where Mando season 3.
I think Mando season 3 is going to be our Christmas present.
I think that will be, and I can't confirm
that
that it's in here. As well. That makes the more sense because they're shooting that right now. So, well, no, they're shooting Ahsoka right now. They just started doing that.
They would be shooting both. I feel like, because
do we have confirmation that they're shooting Mando season 3?
I thought they were, but remember, like Boba Fett was kind of a secret kind of thing that they were shooting, and I feel like they have something up their sleeve that I think I wonder if next week, because I feel like we're all expecting an Andor thing next week, of course. I wonder if they don't drop a Mando, because there is so much Favreau and Filoni on the schedule next week. It's kind of unbelievable. Yeah, they're like in everything. I feel like they're going to drop a trailer for season 3.
That would make sense, and I'm never going to be able to find it now that I'm going through it. But that sounds like sort of the way things are going there, which is fun. But yeah, it's good to go through it. They talk about the invention of the volume and how there's 5 volumes now, and I don't know. It's a good read, but it's not a lot of stuff we haven't already covered. Mandalorian. And then I think we get the Acolyte, and we talked a little bit about Ahsoka and the travails of Rosario Dawson not doing a very good job, and her relationship with Hayden. They kind of like dovetailed in there talking. The article's amazingly written. It's a beautiful story, actually. It's a really fun read. But how she kind of prematurely posted something about being in a show with Hayden, and then like the internet melted for a week.
Yep.
I like the bit about Hayden too, how like he was, there was a backlash against, I guess, his performance in the prequel films upon their release, and in the years after, and then 20 years has passed, and now he's like, I think they're over it, and I think they love me, and they do. I think they do. I think it was smart to be patient for this long, because I feel like it's an indelible character. It's Anakin Skywalker. It's the moody teen who turned into the even moodier adult.
Do you know who also was lambasted for their moody teen performance in a Star Wars film? Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Right. Like no one talked about
human being on the planet. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens is fans grow up and become very powerful with their wallet, right? And so like that's what happened with Mark Hamill, and that's what's happened with Hayden Christensen. I can watch both of those films and say, wow, those are really raw young actors who are learning their craft in the middle of a George Lucas film.
Right. There's something to it though, that it's just like, I feel like there's a cadence to the way that I don't know, that there's precedent setting in both the prequels and the original trilogy that's carried forward into like the modern storytelling.
Couldn't you argue that is the sort of Amblin aspect of Star Wars? Is the young actor sort of
the poor young actor, the bad
first sort of a high drama performance on screen?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because Spielberg definitely does that too, and like Goonies and some of the other like kid movies, like this over the top, almost like there is a very 80s.
Yes.
Like tween. Like now that you're saying that, I'm like, it totally is. Like I think of all the movies I watched as a kid. Yeah.
That just makes me go like that. And if you didn't have that, I wonder
Joe
what those
Dante movie, The Explorers.
Right.
Starring
and I wonder
Phoenix.
I wonder what this movie would feel like if you didn't have the sort of like young actor sort of at the center.
Right.
Just cutting their chops for the first time. Yeah, I wonder what that'd be like. But I think it adds something. I think it's kind of like it's that the X factor.
Yeah. It's got its own vibe.
It provides that level of like camp, like the Flash Gordon kind of camp.
Yeah,
like.
it does.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, and it's almost like it's part of what a Star Wars is. Is that
Especially Rise of Skywalker, where they're just like shouting banter at each other, and I'm just like, what is this? What's happening right now?
They fly now. They fly now. They fly now.
Interaction.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh man. All right. We've talked a lot about this. Any other big topics you want to come up with? We got the Acolyte on here. Not a lot of juicy bits. Everyone should go read this. We've talked about it for 40 minutes at this point, so it's an amazing article and it's fun. And I think we've talked about most of the spirit.
What do we think that Jedi Temple show is going to be titled?
Oof.
I have no idea. I'll have something for you by the end of the show.
Apprentice.
Padawans, like I don't know.
Younglings.
Training. The
Younglings,
trials.
Adventure.
Jedi trials.
the trials. Yeah. I don't know.
It's got to be something brand new, you know, or Path to the Temple or something.
Or just maybe we'll get a series that is the sequel trilogy, like the first line of everyone. So it's like
Jedi
Luke Skywalker is missing, and then we'll get the Dead Speak eventually. Will be a series.
It's called The Dead Speak.
It's the most metal Star Wars show ever.
Yeah. That would be great.
As long as we get Beaumont Kin, I'm happy.
This is the story of a young
Beaumont Kin as Disney Plus Star Wars story. It's all I need.
I'll watch it.
Give it to me.
I would. There's a way to do that. As him as 11-year-old like nerd that will know it all.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I'm there.
That'd be great. I'm into it.
More Babu Frick too. We need more Babu Frick in Star Wars.
In everything.
No,
not just Star Wars. Everything. Put Babu Frick in everything.
Yeah, he should be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want to see him in the DC.
Hey!
Yeah. Literally every show. I'm currently watching Heartstopper on Netflix. Put him in that.
Great.
Yeah.
He would have been good in The Lincoln Lawyer too.
Yeah, I watched some movies and I'm just like, what would make this movie better? Babu Frick.
Babu Frick.
Yeah.
Just popping out of the cockpit, being like, I agree. More Babu Frick.
Old Ben Hermit.
Of course I know him.
Okay.
He's me.
My favorite character in the Star Wars galaxy, Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to talk about him right now, and I think we're going to talk about him in sort of the context of, obviously, the Kenobi show that comes out next week, which is going to be amazing. A week from today, we're going to have a double episode drop for Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's going to be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to talk about him right now. Let's I don't know. I thought about breaking this up in two ways. I'll put structure here and then to heck with structure afterwards. So do you want to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi after this show and then talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi leading up to the show? Is that a wild way to do it?
No, I like it. I mean, that kind of is the way we met him, right?
Right. Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, really, there's one event before A New Hope. Like, obviously, A New Hope is the first time we see Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's legendary. But there was Filoni added an occurrence that happens after this, which is his run-in with Darth Maul.
Right. Yeah.
And that is it's in a scene in Rebels, and Obi-Wan finally finishes off Darth Maul, but it's poetic. We've talked about the scene a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't even want to blow it too much, but at that point, he's the Obi-Wan Kenobi we know from A New Hope. It's not, there isn't much of a change there.
But still rocking old school Obi-Wan poses, because I put it up on the Instagram earlier this week of just like, it's like Alex Guinness Obi-Wan doing the Obi-Wan pose from episode 3.
Yeah, and episode 1. I mean, so that was the bit. You know the bit, right? Like where he goes into his like classic Clone Wars stance, his Ataru stance to begin against Maul, and then he changes stances into Qui-Gon Jinn's stance from Phantom Menace. And like you see the glint in Maul's eye. It's a super powerful scene.
Yeah,
and then
kind of a traveling swordsman aspect to that episode in particular.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we also know this takes place after the show, and it showcases that he's been on Tatooine for a long time. He knows the desert. He's an older man now, and it's so obviously the show he's going to end up back on Tatooine, and We know that beat in Rebels is pretty profound. It's the actual death of Darth Maul. It's Darth Maul's final moment, which is pretty. It's canon, so that's really cool to note. Yeah, so that happens.
Yeah, and then we get a New Hope.
Yeah,
right. He's not. He's mentioned in Rogue One. No, he's not. He's not mentioned in Rogue One. I think Bail Organa says get this to General Kenobi.
I think he's alluded to. Do they actually name check him? I guess they do.
No, I think he says like there are others or something who.
I have a friend
or something like that. You know, like I have a friend or something. Yeah, he alludes to there be Obi-Wan.
Right, but I think Leia actually understands what he's alluding to in that moment.
Right, give this to a friend or something.
Yeah, and then we've got him. Old Ben.
Organa has a Jedi friend. Bail refers to as a Jedi friend.
Yeah.
Right. So,
which I mean, A New Hope and Sir Alec Guinness's performance of Obi-Wan Kenobi is sort of like the seminal Jedi story and sort of like introduction to the Force, and also like weirdly like one of the most Dune inspired like characters in Star Wars, like a guy who lives on a desert planet, like has he's a cool hyphenated name, and then uses mind like tricks on
he's a crazy old hermit wandering the desert. He's very much Paul Atreides Paul Atreides in the third Dune book.
Right. Yeah. And we all watched Hidden Fortress together too. And
Hidden Fortress, he's the Tishira Mifune sort of like bodyguard sort of like character, almost like protecting Luke, right? Like
like old Ronin.
And that's why what I love about this show, Obi-Wan Kenobi, is the line in New Hope, like Luke's knowledge of old Ben means we can basically like showcase a moment wherein Luke would like why he would know about him, why he refers to him with that sort of expression on his face, that sort of like, oh, do you mean old Ben? Like this sort of like stick in the hills, like, and then this story can kind of highlight a moment with like a young Luke seeing Obi-Wan, or sort of like
at least it's so open-ended in that film. Like you could do so much. Like he could have hung out with him every weekend, or it could have been like one time he had a run.
There's a lot you can do with that.
Yeah, there's a lot, and they can really entertain it generously. I mean, one thing we skipped over from the Vanity Fair piece is that it confirmed that there's going to be a physical battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader.
Yeah.
/ Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, they confirmed that a year ago, I think.
Yeah, I still can't that I'm actually going to witness that. Like, I can't internalize it.
They gave enough wiggle room with the way they kept referring to it until this article, where I kept figuring out all the ways they were going to justify it and trick out. And now I'm like, oh no, we're actually going to see them cross sabers in, like, it's not going to be force projection. Like, it's going to be in same room, same people.
Same room. Yeah. I mean, there's images of Hayden and Ewan sparring.
Yeah.
Like in this Vanity Fair piece, which is like, it just breaks my mind. To think they're actually going to do that. Why do you think they told us? That's the part that breaks my mind. Like, if it happened, I'd be like, oh, okay. And like, we'll be taken through in the moment. I'm sure it'll make sense, but it's like, why did they give us so much lead room?
Because they're hiding something even bigger. Because that's what they did with Mando season 2, right? Like, they told us all of these things to hide Luke Skywalker. Remember how many things came out about Mando season 2? Like Ahsoka and all these other things, and then we were still blown away by Luke. So I think there are other cameos that are going to happen in the show that are being obfuscated by everyone focusing on the fact that Obi-Wan and Darth Vader are going to fight.
Okay, I love that. I love that explanation. That's a very optimistic appraisal.
I have no doubt they're going to fight, and when they do fight, I hope it's consequential. I hope something's learned. I hope Darth Vader learns something in all of this. I hope it changes or like, I guess, adds complexity to Darth Vader, because I hope it's not just like everything like Obi-Wan alludes it, escapes sort of without Vader knowing that it was him, or like sort of like Obi-Wan being a phantom kind of in of the opera sort of like character who like you don't really know his identity. Like it's like that would be I wouldn't want that. I would want Vader
No.
to be
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
either. I hope they don't cheat that way. Yeah.
No, that would be so. If you're gonna go for it all the way. Because
they should have dialogue. They should talk maybe. Like,
yeah.
I think they should talk kind of a lot, and like whether it's force Skyping or some other way that I don't know, or maybe it's parallel storytelling. Like maybe we're just hearing about what they're both going through. But yeah, by the end of the article, Chow was saying like, I don't know how I could not have Hayden in this because it's so central to who Obi-Wan Kenobi is at this point in his life. Like he's got to put to bed his like old demons somehow. And I think based on what's in A New Hope, I know that Obi-Wan Kenobi calls him Darth on the Death Star, which means like he's not calling him Anakin anymore. So he's just like my brother's dead. Yeah. So there's going to be that. And
right, so this can be the horror. This can be the moment of horror in the realization that this is his best friend and his brother and just the monster he's become. And that's what this show can do. That most dramatic moment for Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's sort of like
and for Darth Vader,
he's more man than machine. He's more machine than man now. Like you know what I mean? Like that's the cutting him to see through the cybernetics to see the man, and it echoes the tree in Empire. It's like like he's lost. He's fallen.
That's the thing. Think about everything that Obi-Wan tells Luke about Vader, right? He never gives him a ray of hope about his father being saved or anything. And so I think you need that extra, because even at the end of episode 3, yes, I know he killed the younglings and that's horrible. And I know he choked Padme, which is horrible. But I still leave that movie not convinced that Obi-Wan leaves that thinking that's it.
Right.
Like,
he still loves it. He still loves him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And
he couldn't kill him. He couldn't end his life. He ran away.
Yeah.
And running away and exile and patience is something that's like super interesting to analyze, because I think I almost judge him like for not being, for kind of like losing some honor, because after he made sure Padme was okay, like could he not have gone to confront the Emperor and like actually tried to like dethrone the Emperor in some way? Like
who, Obi-Wan?
Yeah.
Well, I think he needed to try, and he was concerned with saving Padme's life.
I know,
but and also
he
didn't know, like, as far as you know, Yoda was. Oh no, he met up with Yoda.
Yeah.
Well, so and Yoda told him it's like we need to go into exile. This is the thing. So
that's the problem is writing backwards.
Samurai. I thought they were samurai, like warriors. I thought they would go attack the Emperor after that. That's
if they had
infinity I want is they just gear up and go. If that's the infinity I want, I'll give you guys that.
I would say I would love that. We should totally do that. If they hadn't made episodes 4, 5, and 6 20 years before, that's exactly how that would happen. It's very clunky with this, like, oh, now, okay, you take your brother and I'll take, like, scarred dude that you don't like, instead of it. Really, the way that whole fight should have gone is Yoda should have gone to take Anakin, and Obi-Wan should have gone to take Palpatine. Yeah, that's
exactly what
but Yoda was way more powerful than Obi-Wan. Like,
because
but had no Obi-Wan would get smoked.
Right, but Anakin would be gone. It's like he would have been no emotional connection.
Well, so I think that Obi-Wan
Yoda is just like
he's just like done. Just cuts him in half.
Or they would have been like, we're gonna go take out Anakin, and then we're gonna go take out the Emperor, or we're just gonna go take out the Emperor together. Like, right? Like the logical. There's like 4 logical combinations, and the worst one is the one they choose because they had to do it because episodes 4, 5, and 6 were already made. Yeah. Like it's just the way it is.
I mean, Obi-Wan's edict was to defeat Darth Vader, and he did, or Anakin rather. Mm-hmm. And he did, and I really thought, he's like, I don't know what's going to come of him after this, but he's out of the game. Like, I think he was just like, whatever you are, like, I've beaten you for now. We need to go, I'm going to rally back at the point, and hopefully, not go after the Emperor again. But I think they had sort of one shot at it, and that was, or they really took 2 shots at it, right? The first pod, and then Yoda by himself, and then by then, he was already Supreme Emperor. But yeah, I mean the other fact we know about this thing is that Obi-Wan gets another sweet W by defeating Vader again, because I think the quote is, when last we met, you were the master and I was the learner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Obi-Wan's gonna master that situation.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I'm excited to see that.
And it's such a great line, like, because again, my headcanon was always like, they never met again since episode 3. But watching every interaction past that, I'm like, there's nothing in there that says they haven't met again, right? Like that line still works with them meeting again at some point. So I was so against this. I was so dreading this when I heard this news. And now I cannot wait to see anything else but this happen.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see Ewan just doing
I know.
anything, just kicking around like, refugee. Like, is this gonna be like Skyfall when he's at the Scorpion Bar? That's gonna be the flavor of Obi-Wan Kenobi we get, I think.
Yeah.
Great. I love the sleuthing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just read the Christopher Cantwell comic, the #1, and
Yeah.
it also kind of shows Obi-Wan as like, but like as a kid, sort of like as sort of investigating streets and alleys on Coruscant, and as a sort of doing detective work. And I love Detective Obi-Wan, and I hope we get a lot of that in the show.
And in the Michael Chen Brotherhood that just came out, he pays another visit to Coco Town to go see
What's
Dexter
Coco Town?
Jettster. That's where Dexter.
Oh,
Jettster's,
that's the part of town.
yeah.
That's the part of Coruscant. It's Coco
So
Town.
good.
Nice. Coco Town. So the confirmed Dexter Jettster reappearance. Well, why don't we go to the beginning of Obi-Wan's arc at this point? Because talked about the end of it. We don't know much about his young life, but Grant, you're reading. There's a new Obi-Wan comic out, right? And you read the first issue.
Yeah.
So we get some information about his earliest life.
Right. So canonically, I mean, I guess we should say he comes from the homeworld of Stewjon, which is
Jon
from the
Stewart.
Jon Stewart program, The Daily Show. That's where he that's his home planet, and you don't really know. You don't get a sense of his family, but this story, this Christopher Cantwell comic, it's Obi-Wan #1, Youngling's Challenge. Obviously, Christopher Cantwell is the writer. Ariel Anadito is the artist. Colors is Carlos Lopez, and Caramonic's lettering. That comic actually showcases like a 9-year-old youngling Obi-Wan. Like,
youngling.
Maybe like 7-year-old, honestly. He seems pretty young. And he is hanging out with another Padawan named Garen, and it's cool because like I remember reading the Jedi Apprentice books back in the day, and there's like it features Obi-Wan like and sort of like other Padawans, and I remember those. I barely remember those names, but this is different. This is a new name, I believe. I believe this is a new character. So it's sort of like this first sort of canon story for him. That character Garen, this Jedi youngling, is having like nightmares of her family, and she leaves the Jedi Temple by just like jumping off the wall into the layers and layers of city below, and goes to like the abyss of Coruscant, and it's and sort of like gets involved with these pirates, and our youngling Obi-Wan jumps off the ledge and follows her into the city.
Nice.
Into like the depths of Coruscant. It's awesome. Like, it's a great comic. It's a great first issue. And he kind of searches for her through the city, and then finds her again, and she runs away, and then he goes back to the temple, and Yoda sort of like reprimands Obi-Wan, and you sort of like get the first kind of Yoda Obi-Wan story, like connection, which obviously is kind of what the heart of what I think is so intriguing about Obi-Wan is this sort of, these are the two sort of samurai who became exiles, kind of like who went into hiding, like they're masters, they're the actual council members who survived, like this is they are stewards of the Jedi Order, right? Like they're the the last stewards of the order. It's kind of crazy. And like, as much as like Obi-Wan is sort of like a pragmatist and sort of like can kind of see outside the order, but also he's also, I would also say, sort of like aligns with the Jedi's teachings. Like all his morals align perfectly with the Jedi teachings, and so he actually does support it and is a steward, I would say.
Yeah, I mean that's who he's a rule follower. Though we do know from the I think it was the book, right, Master and Apprentice.
Yeah, the Claudia Gray book.
Right. He talks about some of his earlier life, and he was like, I didn't think I was going to even get chosen to be a Padawan. For a while there, he had sort of a rough upbringing, and I mean, it sounds like he's got a little bit of a rebellious streak in him, and so we're going to get to see the forming of what he becomes in that comic book arc, which I'm really excited to read. But yeah, then we have sort of young Obi-Wan, and it's a lot of it's Master and Apprentice, and him having some, he's a busy guy. They're everywhere together. Like Obi-Wan's a busy Jedi, and they're all over the galaxy.
Yeah. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they're going all over the place. Yeah,
but they do spend a year on Mandalore.
Yeah. Ooh, a sexy year on Mandalore.
Yeah. Where we find the origins of his name, Ben.
Really?
Satine,
go on.
Yeah, Satine.
That's her nickname for him?
Nickname was Ben. That's where he gets old Ben from. And they mentioned that in Brotherhood in that book that just came out.
Okay.
But it seemed like they were referencing something from previous, which I didn't recall if maybe in the Clone Wars arc was Satine. But apparently Satine is the person who gave him the name Ben.
Yeah, so I was watching that Clone Wars arc recently, and there's an elevator scene that mirrors the elevator scene at the beginning of Attack of the Clones. But this time it's Obi-Wan that's just had a tiff with Satine in front of everybody. They like clearly have some sharp edges, and so it's Anakin having fun with him, and it's pretty great. And that's when he's like, we had this thing together, and we were always on the run, and we were ambushed, and Anakin's like, sounds romantic. And he just gives him a grunt or whatever. But it's a good scene, and it just talks about there was definitely a very their courtship and when that happened. But that's funny to know that he picked. That's a good tie-in to Satine for later on, if that's why he picked Ben Kenobi.
Yeah,
as an alias. But I hope we'll see some of that in the show. I imagine we'll get some explanation there.
But yeah, more adventures with Qui-Gon. I mean, we know the whole Rail Averross.
Rail Averross,
right?
Baby.
Arc. And Obi met him, right? Like
yeah, they spent a lot of time together. And because they were both former Padawans of Qui-Gon, right? So but Rail is the grizzled old, veteran who is kind of gone astray. He's a rebel. He's wearing a leather jacket and boots, and
there was some like
smoking cigarettes.
There was some dispute, like diplomatic ordeal that I remember between that royal family and whatever. I forget, but it was great. I loved that book.
Yeah, Rail Averross was like if Billy Bob Thornton was Merlin, to the court, and that's kind of what he was doing. But so that's what we get, and then it's pretty much we're into the prequels, I think.
Yeah. To circle back around to Ben and Satine.
Sure.
That's from the novel Kenobi, which is no longer canon. That Satine called him Ben. But
Sino novel that I love.
But Michael Chen in the Brotherhood, which we'll cover in a later date, so we still have to read it. I read about a quarter of it, did reference that occurring. So that's now recanonized. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
like safe.
Yeah. Right. Accurate.
Sabak.
Yeah.
All right, nice.
That Lucino book is
on.
really good. It was was it Lucino, or did I just say that?
No, it's Miller. No, it's John Jackson Miller.
John Jackson Miller. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that book is amazing. I always make that mistake. And
and they just re-released it in the Essential Legends collections. If you want a nice, cool paperback version of it.
Cool.
Which I have, but have not read.
Looks great.
It's a lot like The Mandalorian, actually. It's sort of him interacting with, it has the same feel as The Mandalorian and Boba Fett, where it's a lot of time on Tatooine, solving small skirmishes, coming to terms with who he is. It's fun.
I do have to say, when I was a kid and I saw Phantom Menace, guys, I know I'm a bit young in comparison to when you guys saw it. Obi-Wan was my favorite part of that film. I was amped.
Yeah, me too.
He was my hero after the movie. After that movie, I was like, this is Superman. This is Batman. This is like the character I'm obsessed with, like, for I guess the next 5 years of my life.
So I mean, I was a big Ewan McGregor fan prior to Phantom Menace coming out, so I was so excited when they anned that he was going to be
what's
Obi-Wan.
before that, like Trainspotting and like
Trainspotting.
What is before that?
There was I can't think of that film that I loved.
There's a few really good.
There's a one about their it's coming to me, but it's about. Go ahead.
You think about it. I'm just going to give you there was a quote from the Vanity Fair article with Ewan, and he was saying, like, it was a big choice to join Star Wars because you're kind of a Star Wars person for life. And he's like, my whole trajectory was this edgy indie film, like, actor, like grungy, indie film. And that's where I was headed. And that's where I thought my career was. And then he was just took the plunge as Obi-Wan, but I don't think it really disrupted his career that much. He's still done a million different things. He was a great actor before, and all, his role as Obi-Wan's done is raise his profile as an actor. He was fantastic in the prequels.
It's really funny because I think back, I was a total like movie. I grew up in a video store, so I was all in those indie British films. So he did a movie called Shallow Grave, which is Danny Boyle's first movie.
Oh, wow.
Which I watched at least once a week between the ages of 14 and 18. I hope it's still good, and I hope it's not problematic, but I haven't watched it. So I don't want to vouch, I don't want to vouch for any film I loved when I was a teenager, unless I've watched it recently. But it is a great thriller where basically there's roommates in a flat. They have a new guy move in who dies, and who just mysteriously dies, and they discover all of this money in his room. And so they basically take all the money and hide the body. And it becomes a thriller. It's very it's very Hitchcockian in that way.
Yeah.
It was, as I remember, extremely good. And I remember watching him that film, and that was his second movie. Yeah. I remember, and he was so good in it. And then Trainspotting was the year after, and then I saw him in Emma and A Life Less Ordinary and stuff like that. So weirdly, like, he had only been acting for about 4 years before episode 1, but I was just like, look, this established actors in Star Wars, because I had seen all of his movies.
It's wild. He does like Moulin Rouge and Black Hawk Down between episode 1 and episode 2. That's wild.
He was a busy dude. That guy was like, I need to make money right now.
Yeah, the second half of the 1990s, he was nonstop working. It's really unbelievable how much work he did. But so I was so excited when he came out, and then when I watched that movie the first time, I was all about Qui-Gon. But and then the last fight, I was back on Obi-Wan. Like that mall fight is amazing.
I loved Obi-Wan. I thought he was like the most heroic character in the Star Wars story, period. I was like, wow, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that was it too. Same experience. I was like, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, I was like, just totally
so good. That's
over
the Jedi moon. Master and apprentice story encapsulated in that film. It was
because it really focuses more on Qui-Gon in the first film, and you're like, but Obi-Wan, but it's like brand new character.
It does them both, but Obi-Wan's kind of sneaky. It like keeps Obi-Wan kind of like low profile, and then he's very important at the end of the film. And you're like, oh, I love that structure. It's a beautiful structure.
Yeah. And it's like, the apprentice is forced to, avenge the master. And like that, I don't know, you don't get that very often in Star Wars where it actually works out well. Usually, the apprentice gets, driven off or killed. So pretty wild. A legendary, and that's the first time he killed Darth Maul.
Yeah. Do you know?
Yeah, that's rough, guys. I really thought he was dead. That was kind of like why I was like, that was such an impactful moment.
But again, for Jedi, it's defeats. They're defeating people. They're not killing. Yeah.
That's true.
You're right.
Their deaths are incidental. Back to Ewan McGregor for a second. Do you know Ewan McGregor has an Obi?
What?
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 Is an Obi?
Yeah, he's an Obi, an OBE, which is the most excellent order of the British Empire, which is an order of chivalry for the arts and sciences. Just saying. Ewan McGregor is an Obi and has an Obi.
Okay.
Moving
He
on.
should have an Obi.
I will stop it. I may have fallen down a Ewan McGregor hole in the
That's
internet.
what I said.
Yeah. And he has a brother, and he's an Air Force pilot, and he's called Obi too.
He does like a Motorcycle Diaries kind of show or something too.
Yes, my wife has watched all seasons and tells me a lot about it. That is her. My wife's celebrity crush is Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, can't blame her.
No, neither can I.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I may share that as well.
So I mean, going through the prequels, I don't know. He's got had a pretty good run as far as W's.
Yeah.
He did. Gosh, who did he defeat? I mean, he beat Grievous. He beat Jango Fett. Like in actually Jango escaped really, so I'll call that a draw. But
that's true.
Did not get defeated by Jango Fett.
No, he did lose twice to Count Dooku though. That's not great.
Well, yeah, tough.
I mean,
tough.
there's no well about it. He handily got beat twice.
Yep, sure did. Sure did.
Sorry, Ben.
I love
I'm trying
that
to remember.
Fight. That fight is. I
just
think
got
my favorite.
just got
fight
dismissed by Dooku twice.
Yeah.
He was just like, and
The
you
second
go over
one.
there.
Yeah, the second one was both of them are Anakin's fault. But whatever.
Yeah, Obi-Wan's renown is kind of given short shrift because like all these other Sith come out of the woodwork and then like he's just thrown to the side. And I'm like, no, he was.
Yeah.
I thought he was like the grand hero of the prequels.
Right, but like 2 force pushes and like he's too disqualified out of the ring.
He's gone.
Fights with Dooku. And
He's
like,
out.
Really?
It's Anakin's story. It's Yoda. It's
Yeah.
But other than that, pretty good track record.
Yeah.
You always have a blind spot for Dooku, I guess.
Yeah. But I think that's why George gave him that amazing fight at the end of episode 3.
Yeah.
Right? Like you needed another Obi-Wan win. That was an epic, like just real win.
Right.
Like just
yeah. It does kind of mirror the first film, which is beautiful.
Yeah. And he's, he grows as a teacher. He becomes, he's really only ever been a brother to Anakin Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it, they're, heroes together, and they have their different styles where Anakin's brash and like super strong, and, Obi-Wan's more reserved and tactical and, does his thing. He's, pretty good general. And then he gets sent on a bunch of like undercover missions too, right?
Yeah.
He goes to prison, right?
Yeah.
Once he has to do that. He wears bounty hunter armor and is like tracking down. I think he had an arc with Boba Fett, with like young Boba Fett, and like both times it was tied in with him.
Right.
And he's the guy they send, the council sends undercover, which is a pretty cool thing, leaning on more of this investigator superpower.
Yeah, and countless military operations during the Clone Wars. And sort of battle tested, like Obi-Wan and Anakin are battle tested before Revenge of the Sith begins, because Revenge of the Sith obviously takes place at the very end of the war. And so it's very cool to see their development through that show. That was honestly, best part of that show is honestly how they dealt with each dispute on each world, and the separatists and pirates and Mandalorians, Death Watch and all that kind of stuff. Like I loved Obi-Wan's adventures in that show.
Right. Yeah.
I might be ready for a 4th rewatch.
Right. I know it's really good. I bet I'd get a lot more out of it now after having all these podcasts in between and thinking about these characters in different ways. And plus it's just like over time, there's more content, which gives more perspective on a character, and it sort of changes the whole story again for you, which is kind of fun. It like has that ripple effect through the whole galaxy because everything's connected in the same thing. So that's always fun to see. His battles, I'm trying to think of him as like a naval officer. Like he's always on the deck. He's like rock steady. He's not flashy. He doesn't have any like crazy battle maneuvers that win battles. He's just a general that does his job and leaves and plays it pretty conservative the whole time. I can't think of any like crazy, they have a ton for Anakin where he does these crazy maneuvers to gain, statue victory from the jaws of defeat and that sort of thing. But not as much with Obi-Wan, I don't remember.
No, he's more of tactician, like you said, very thoughtful, like just
Pragmatic.
Yeah.
That's sort of it.
It's funny. I wrote down tactician in this list. I was like, what are some words I think of when I think of Obi-Wan? Obviously mentor, but because like we haven't even talked about that really. Like, how is he mentoring Anakin in Attack of the Clones and into the Clone Wars? Like, what is that doing to him? That's shaping him, right? Like, that's in the show we're about to see. Like, I imagine the Anakin relationship is the closest thing he has to a brother, obviously, and he is thinking about it often. And so it's a lost brother more than it's a lost Padawan, or so because like obviously they're just like knights and masters at the point of when, or I guess obviously Anakin not a master, but they're sort of like they're connected in they're like just friends in the order at this point.
I have a question for you guys. So does Obi-Wan Kenobi at this point, when this show is going to happen, does he know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader? Or does he think Anakin Skywalker? Well, I mean, does he think Anakin Skywalker's dead?
I think he thinks he's dead and finds out. Like, I think before the show starts, he thinks Anakin's dead.
Because it would be much more powerful for him to figure that out in this show.
I think so. I think especially, we've talked about having the Inquisitorius in the show and how we feel about that. One of the benefits of that is that he knows there are fallen Jedi. So it wouldn't be a leap for him to see Vader and think this is just another fallen Jedi. This isn't Anakin Skywalker, right? This is just another person, right? And so you could see him thinking that, like, this is just another person who.
Oh, I'm hoping they do the OG original trilogy, sort of like by proximity they can sense one another like pretty early and like within like miles within each other.
That would be cool.
Do you think it's going to be like a force sense thing? Like he'll find
force sense. Yeah, I want them to. I hope it's.
And that's how he figures it out.
Yeah,
but before then,
I really hope that happens.
You could have your cake and eat it too, because he could see Vader through holo feeds or something like that, and have this assumption, feel Anakin, search that feeling out, right, and then see that it's Vader, and have that. I also think it's nothing
scarier than like. I hope this is like T2, basically. I hope the end of this series is like Terminator 2, because I want Vader to seem absolutely terrifying, like what Rogue One did, but just like times 1,000. Like when he's coming for you, he just like shreds entire hallways and just like will get to you no matter what.
What you think about might be
this is anger.
Yeah, and to have Obi-Wan actually witness that, I guess he did see it on the video in the Jedi Temple, but it's different than watching him actively like just cutting through swaths of people.
Yeah,
right.
There's a lot to play with there, and I don't know, because speaking of the video, wasn't part of the video when he was kneeling before the Emperor and like in that I don't know if there was audio with that, but if there was, that was him being like, "Rise, Lord Vader." So that could be a clue. But I don't know. That's going to be a fun aspect of it. Let's see how.
That
could be super powerful. You think Ahsoka is going to play a part in this show at all?
I don't know. I feel like Ahsoka could. I also feel like the Mandalorian could pop up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson thought that Hayden was going to be in her show, in the Ahsoka show, I thought.
Yeah.
Which would be cool, actually. Because that's the only other person with as close a relationship as Obi and Anakin is Ahsoka and Anakin, right? So she's a huge part of that equation. But I feel like they'll probably just focus on Obi-Wan's relationship for this show. I don't know. I just thought it out. This Vanity Fair thing threw me like for all the leaks.
Yep. Yeah,
I do
for
think we're
sure.
gonna get like some Jimmy Smith's Bail Organa Rogue One sort of Jimmy Smith's action. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think that's
also
like guaranteed. Honestly,
I think so too.
Point.
I also wonder if we're being shown a lot of, not a lot, but they're specifically showing us Luke in the previews, and I'm wondering if that's a red herring. That might not be the Skywalker.
Maybe the other sibling. Maybe
the most time
might
with
be of more importance in the show.
Yeah, I
we'll see.
wonder. Yeah.
So it's actually going to really
misdirect.
This is some tinfoil stuff, guys.
Yeah.
Grant, you were talking about this before the show.
Yeah, I have
actually
guys.
I
have a dream, kind of like fanfic. I guess I wrote a sort of treatment for a series and also a few scripts of like an Alderaan series, and I'm like, if they're ever going to do something super impactful with the kids when they're young, like the only story you might do that in is Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like, because he, when we left him in Revenge of the Sith, I mean, there's not just one thread with the Vader thread we have to connect here. There's also the two other threads, the Luke and Leia threads. Those have to also be, I think, like continued, right, through this show and into A New Hope. Right, like it has to be a smooth transition, and I think like Leia's story is key throughout when you really look into even into the sequels and obviously the original trilogy. I think Leia would be a really smart move for the show, just given like to have some sort of Leia storyline, because
it's totally bonkers.
He's looking out for both of them, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Yoda's
saying sounds
retired
like
on a swamp planet. Like he's looking out for them, I feel.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. They both should be treated equally. And I was like, that's crazy. They'll never do it because it's such a cut and dry thing. But if Owen Lars is like, get out of here, I don't want you here, and he's been hearing that for 10 years or however long he's been on Tatooine, maybe he's like, okay, well, if I can't do this, I'll go protect Leia and go to Alderaan.
Yeah.
And there could actually be some time there. Like I could see them telling that, like that would be a massive red herring, but it would be cool and it gets him off the planet and it makes sense. And like, that could be really cool.
I mean, the other thing is like, I zoned out for a minute, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating something that someone said, but like, we know that Bail Organa is a major force in the galaxy.
Yeah.
And that he's under scrutiny more. And if he has a child who is force sensitive, that is probably much more likely to come to the attention of people than some kid in a backwater planet.
Right.
And so what if you have what if it's part of it is that Obi-Wan, through all of this, through interacting with the Inquisitorius, someone's figured out that Bail Organa has a force sensitive kid.
Oh wow, that would be great. You know why that'd be so fantastic is because it'd be like sort of like this princess of Alderaan who has force ability, and the Empire sort of catches wind, and they're like, take her hostage or something like that, and then they're like, well, it's not, the midichlorian levels aren't off the charts, so we'll give her back or something like that, and like allow Viceroy Organa to like keep his child.
Yeah. Or Obi-Wan has to like dispatch the
that'd be cool.
Inquisitorius and the records, right?
Yeah.
And that was
right.
him
Yeah,
on
that'd be
on
awesome.
this like planet chase, right?
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. He won't be able to go to Fortress Inquisitorius because we do that in Fallen Order. Like he won't be able to go to the heart of the Inquisitor, sort of like home base, because we already.
But we're gonna see it, which is really cool.
We're gonna spend time there, but I don't think Obi-Wan.
Yeah, it'll just be briefings for the Inquisitors. It'll be it'll be like them, just like. I don't know.
It's still gonna be so awesome for me though, having read the comics and like knowing and playing the game. Like, I don't know, just being in that space, it's probably just gonna be a dumb room with some lit up black panels. But it's like whatever. To me, I'm gonna be like, oh, this is awesome inside.
It's so awesome.
Right.
Dude, guys, it's great to be alive. I am so happy.
It's so true.
Like,
I know.
as a Star Wars fan, this is the greatest time ever.
I'm so
and all the
excited.
stuff, when I was a kid that I was obsessed with, like in Marvel and Star Wars, it's all just on the big screen and on streaming, and it's just I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. But this show is going to be special. I feel like there could be a Leia story involved. Luke, he's going to confront Vader. What else is important for Obi-Wan? Satine. Like, are we going to get some Satine? Are we going to get some Qui-Gon? What's the ramifications of Qui-Gon?
It's got to be some
Given, like
Qui-Gon.
Liam Neeson.
There's gotta be
Liam Neeson, I
Qui-Gon.
think, made up for his political sort of like
Yeah.
issue, whatever happened. What? Yeah, he said some horrific thing, and then I guess
he said some really tone deaf things in the guise of trying to be thoughtful. He was extremely thoughtless, if that makes sense. Like he was trying to make a point that was bad, and he was dumb about it. He didn't say something anyway. I don't want to relitigate it, but I feel like I don't know if he made up for it so much as on the litany of things that famous actors have done in the past 3 years, this has drifted pretty far under the radar. People are like, yeah, whatever. We've got other things that we're dealing with now. So I think it's somewhat maybe forgotten more than forgiven. And then, so I think he's going to show up. I think we're going to get Yoda.
We're going to get Yoda.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, like,
that would be pretty fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're saying Tarkin too? Like that's okay.
Yeah.
I know all the things we're saying right now, this if everything we've talked about is in here. I mean, we're talking this is an epic show.
Yeah. They might save Tarkin for Andor, but
right.
Yeah.
Because instead it's more pivoted towards the Inquisitorius, and that'll be the base.
All right, where do Vader and Obi-Wan fight at the end of the film?
Such a good question. I'll tell you, it's definitely not Tatooine.
Yeah, it looks like it's on another volcanic planet. I'm gonna guess Sullust.
All right.
Or it's on like a mountain ridge in Alderaan or something.
Whoa!
There we go.
Guess.
Well, Ben called it, so it's definitely happening now.
That's a great guess.
That's Ben's like Disney Plus whisperer mojo right there.
Fantasy. That's awesome.
Called right now. Yeah.
Just based off that, we did get one image. It was very stylized, but it looked like it was like on a Kef beer or like some rocky outcropping. And you got to know, it's like if they're going to do this, they're going to do this off the board. They're going to go some like there isn't going to be an audience for that fight.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very.
And we also want the set piece also like the actual production design and the set has to kind of evoke like Return of the Jedi and Luke sort of evading Vader and Vader sort of tracking Luke in like the shadows underneath, shadowy like underbelly of the staircase and the sort of like rafters and stuff, and like looking for Luke. Like even Empire has that sort of like sequence where they're like this sort of like tracking each other down hallways, and
that's the
Vader's
thing.
a hunter. Vader's like a hunter. Vader's like a monster from like an old sort of like horror monster flick. Like you almost want the location to almost have like tunnels or I don't know, like if you saw Doctor Strange, like a lot of hallways, like it might be interesting to have like a lot of hallways in terms of Vader hunting Obi-Wan, like
sort of like
a maze almost.
The Minotaur and the maze.
Yes.
I think would be a really great way to do it because we're about halfway between episode 3 and episode 4, right? So if you think about it in terms of like power level and ability level, we're halfway between what we see Obi-Wan do at the end of episode 3 and what we see Obi-Wan do in episode 4.
Yeah.
Right. So at the same time, we have Vader, who has just been like fighting for the past 10 years, training basically, right, in the ways of the Sith.
Yeah.
And we've had Obi-Wan, who's been training in the way of being a hermit, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think he's got a lot of like lightsaber practicing in there.
Right.
And so I like this idea that you get this more cat and mouse type of fight.
Right. But don't you think this show is going to show the true evolution, the ultimate evolution of Obi-Wan Kenobi into the wise old hermit, right?
Yes,
the one that
100%.
Has the answers. That's confident and comfortable and at peace with the Force. Like he's, this is going to be the superpower. To call on Hero of a Thousand Faces. This is the apotheosis, right?
Yeah.
This is him sort of dying and coming back with the heavenly gift of wisdom. I think is going to be through whatever this crucible is that he goes through.
Yeah. Which is why I think he will win this fight, but it's not going to be the fight in episode 3 where they're jumping and fighting and swinging lightsabers. That he is beating him through his mind, through cat and mouse, through
I do think Obi-Wan can get injured in this fight, though. He could get like Vader could strike his like back or something like that.
It's interesting. Yeah,
in a
slow him
fun
down
way.
to the Alex.
Slow him
Guinness.
down so when they fight, it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense because he like struck him like pretty bad in that fight.
Or maybe he sucks his life power out, so somehow that explains
why did
he
he age so much. He's like
Yeah.
60. Sarah Guinness is like 63. I think actually he's the same age as Ewan McGregor is now. which
Yeah.
is like
If a life drain scene, Adam, if we get that, I will literally like stand up and call you immediately,
what you'll probably be sitting
shouting.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. Yeah, he was 62 in during Star Wars Alex Guinness, and
that's not clean living, kids. That's
it was also the 70s.
yeah.
Well, I mean, and again, that makes sense because Ewan McGregor's 51, right?
he's 51.
And so, but this is about 10 years before Episode 4. So this is set kind of perfectly. I mean, again, 51 now.
Yeah.
That 10 years is more like a 30-year difference in terms of how our movie stars age now compared to 1977.
I think this story, but then also like, is it redundant for him to like cut Vader's helmet and see like the eye? Because I almost want that to happen in this show. You know, what I mean?
you know what? Use it. It's such an amazing moment in Rebels that I'd be fine if they stole it.
Yeah,
I would say like mess up the breather so he has to take his mask off or something. Like I would love to see something weird happen where it's almost like Art House where Vader like falls over, has to take off his entire helmet. It's like he's breathing weird differently and it has a device to maybe turn on that allows him to breathe like in just like a Darth Malgus, if you remember the Old Republic.
Oh
games.
Yeah.
Just
I can totally see them
just
doing
the mouthpiece for a second.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Then you get a lot of Hayden right there. You get a lot of Hayden.
I think we're gonna get a lot of Hayden.
I think we are.
You know, in the Tony Gilroy said that Mon Mothma, we're gonna get a lot of Mon Mothma in Andor.
Yeah,
she's gonna be a parallel story that's being told.
She looks great too. There's a photo of her.
Yeah, Genevieve
O'Reilly. She looks fantastic.
Yeah, she looks. It's great. Yeah.
So we're gonna get that there, and so here I think we're gonna get a lot of Hayden.
But she's kind of, I guess they're pushing her like mystical priestess again, like 70s mystical.
Yes, please.
Like guru, sort of like
this is the age of Aquarius,
and I'm like, that's why I come to Star Wars, because like, you got Squid Mon Calamari guys, and you got like I guess like a Woodstock hippie
flower child, rebellion leader. Yeah.
I mean. I can get behind this faction.
I mean, again, let's not forget the classic line: "Ain't in this for your revolution." The best Han Solo line ever. Like it's the 70s were the 70s, man. Like
so good.
Far out.
Wait, is Tony Gilroy writing her like that though, or is he writing her like more? I guess tactician, sort of like. Battle.
If he knows what's good for him, I want her to be weird. I want
I want the weird. I really want the weirdness to be weird. But like she's so tactical that she's weird. You know what I mean? Like it's Dune like almost like Benny Gesserit-esque.
Yeah, I mean you can do both. Like have her be like hippy dippy, but also smart. Like you can have both, right? Like you can totally be a master tactician, but also super weird,
kind of psychedelic, like a kind of psychedelic leader. Yeah, I would love that.
Oh yeah, that would be so fun.
Yeah.
So because that's how she is. Like she's like, this is the age of Aquarius, lead singer. Like that.
I mean, that many Bothans died line. It's just like the way she delivers that line is like so great, and it's so weird and like
I hope that begins.
Far out. I think we're there. We've talked a long time right now, and now we're finally like, this is what the show will be. Actually, I'm going to end you on with my prediction. I dug out mine. I didn't dig out yours, but this was mine back in 2021. I think we made predictions. And I said, Obi-Wan deals with the past traumatic stress of killing his brother, meditates on the future, and solves the mystery that ties past and future together. Who is Darth Vader? That was my...
Nice.
Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
I don't remember mine, but I'm pretty sure it was just what we saw in Boba Fett. So you can just kind of get rid of mine.
Fair enough.
Yeah, mine was about like an inspector coming to
Tatooine,
which they're doing. That's just like that's just the beginning.
Actually, yours is really the closest.
It's pretty close. It's very close. Yeah,
it's from what we've heard already. Anyway.
I think mine to see Inquisitors land on Tatooine. Honestly, I was surprised.
No, actually, this is gonna sound such like a cheat. You know what mine was?
What was it?
Sea Grants.
Oh, it was.
That's what Grant pitched his, and I loved it so much. I'm like, I just do Grants.
Because you've talked about the series before it was even.
Yeah.
So. I just thought I think it was dueling detectives is what I wanted, like ISP sort of like security personnel, like in Reva or in whatever Imperial officers are involved in tracking Obi-Wan, like in that sort of idea, but in one character and in a woman. And Reva is sort of that role, honestly. Like
Reva's
pretty much seems like she's that.
Yeah.
But
it's just that plus force ability.
It's just instead of ISB, I think I did the exact same, almost like it's a very similar story, but instead of Inquisitor, I did ISB because I've always thought Inquisitors are just like too cool. And as you can see, Reva's costume is just off the chain.
She's behind me right now.
Greatest costume I think ever designed in
They also
Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I didn't know if like people were ready for that cool factor because it's almost like Marvel. It's like almost just like so cool. I don't know. And Star Wars has always been like clunky and bad looking.
Yeah.
I kind of
no,
like
it's true.
That's sort of like worn out, bad, you know, poorly designed, clunky sort of design. I like that sort of.
And that's very much what ISB agents look like. They have weird helmets, and weird uniforms. It's like
her thing
stupid.
seems like halfway between both those things. They backed it down a little bit from what the Inquisitorius looks like in Rebels. Like, do you know what I mean? Like hers look a little more real world-y.
I love that she doesn't have a helmet.
Yes.
I think it's I don't know, it adds a lot more gravity, and she's just like, perfect. She looks like perfect there.
Yeah, you have Fifth Brother behind me, and his robes look incredible, honestly.
His is more like samurai, like Mortal Kombat sort of.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, basically, the robes are awesome.
No, this is.
It also has some cybernetics.
Yeah.
On his there going on too. Yeah, it's.
Right.
I'm fascinated.
Man, so the next time we do a podcast, it'll be after an Obi-Wan episode, right?
Yes.
After 2 Obi-Wan episodes.
2 Obi-Wan episodes, and also the beginning of Star Wars Celebration. So
yeah, that's gonna be a heck of a thing.
Get psyched. Get psyched. Go read the comic and the book's Brotherhood.
Yep.
And the comics out there. Get fired up. They always love to drop synergistic little notes and hints in those things. They know when those things when things get published. So check it out. And we'll talk to you next week with like tremendous smiles on our faces. We'll be in the same place, which would be the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be amazing. So thanks very much for listening to us. And as always, may the force be with you.
This is Grex Kondak signing off. For the latest breaking news, follow @CoreWorldNews on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you and good night.
Remember, the force will be with you always.